Welcome back to From the Shed End with myself, TDOT. As always, thank you very much for joining me. Now, before we get into the content, please go and subscribe to the channel. We are close to 350 subscribers. I'm hoping, if I'm honest, I can get to 400 subscribers by the end of the season. So that's just under 3 weeks away, the 28th of May. I'm hoping by then, the last game of the season, I want to see at least 400 subscribers. So if you're watching these videos, you're new to the channel, please go and subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget, you can go and follow our Twitter account, our Instagram account, our Facebook account as well. Make sure you go follow all of those, and make sure you hit that Linktree link in the description. That will take you to all our podcast episodes that we have previously recorded. Now, let's start on some bad news. Unfortunately, N'Golo Kante is out for the next 3 weeks. Unfortunate for N'Golo Kante, someone who we've clearly been waiting and dying to see come back into the team, has played 1 or 2 games and then is back out for what seems to be the rest of his season. We tweeted earlier on in the week about N'Golo Kante. N'Golo Kante will be out up to 2 to 3 weeks with a groin injury that he suffered in training yesterday. His season is undoubtedly over. And have we seen the last of NG in a Chelsea shirt? Now, personally, for me, I think N'Golo Kante is someone that we have heavily relied on in previous seasons, someone that we haven't necessarily got the best out of over the last 2 or 3 seasons. But does he have a role to play? I think it all depends on the summer transfers. It depends who comes in. There's no doubt that N'Golo Kante is a game changer. He's world class. He's someone that we miss when we don't have in the team. But can we honestly go into another season with 50% N'Golo Kante? And I remember having a conversation with someone when he was injured earlier on this season that, 30% N'Golo Kante is better than some of our midfield options that we've currently got in the squad. But I just think without N'Golo Kante, it leaves a massive void in the team. We don't have anyone of the same quality that we can bring into the team. And to be honest, I think the last couple of seasons we've seen a massive decline in not just his performances, but the amount of games he's playing over a season. And maybe this season coming up without the European football, focusing on just the domestic tournaments as well, maybe this is an opportunity for us to manage N'Golo Kante slightly better this season. Obviously, I know there's been a lot of work in the behind the scenes trying to get the coaching staff right, and bringing back the previous medical staff as well, some of those that have been brought back into the club after being sacked by Todd Bowley. So maybe those things will help N'Golo Kante, but it does seem to be another injury after another injury. And he's at the age now where these injuries are going to take a lot longer for him to recover from as well. There's no doubt that he's a world-class player, and he's clearly a player that we will miss, or we have missed when he's not been playing. But to see how many injuries he's picking up now over the last 2 seasons, it is a concern. We need to make sure that we've got another DM, which we're going to talk about slightly later on. Another DM, another player that can come and sit alongside Enzo or play just behind Enzo. We need some depth, some quality and depth in that department in midfield. And N'Golo Kante is someone that clearly hasn't still signed that deal. The extension that was talked about a couple of weeks ago, that still hasn't been officially agreed by the club or by the player. So you do question whether, does he want to go somewhere else? Does he want a different challenge as well? So there's a lot of things to consider with N'Golo Kante. The fact that there was talks ongoing that looked very positive, that seemed to have stalled and stopped, and nothing really has come of it, that is a bit of a concern. But to be honest, I look at N'Golo Kante 3 years ago to the N'Golo Kante that we've got now, and he's a shadow of himself. So maybe it isn't a bad thing if we let him go, we get some money for him, or we need to bring in some quality, I think is what we're saying as well, 100%. But another big talking point in the last couple of days was Lewis Hall, which we spoke about in our last episode 93 From the Shed End. Like I said, hit the Linktree link in the description. You'll be able to go and listen to that. But more news has broke around the under-20 England squad. CARNEY, who was involved and included in that squad to go and represent England at under-20 level in the World Cup, has been told by Chelsea that he must stay due to the injury to N'Golo Kante and Theo Kovacic, which probably sees both of them out, if not one of the other, out for the rest of the season. CARNEY has been told he has to stay. He has to have a role to play in the Chelsea squad before meeting up with the England squad, which I think will result in him missing the first England game in the World Cup. Now, I did speak quite in depth with Theo on episode 93 about Lewis Hall and having that development as a youngster, going into those tournaments and experiencing what it's like at international level away from from club football, away from your regular surroundings, and going away and trying to do that at that level. And he's captained England under 20s, and I think actually won a tournament under 18s whilst I think at Aston Villa. So I think CARNEY Chukwuemeka has probably a bit more experience than Lewis Hall at that level, but it still doesn't bode well that we're blocking certain players from going to represent their countries and whatever else. So, and I understand the logistics behind it, because obviously we're losing N'Golo Kante, we've lost Mateo Kovacic as well, two big figures in midfield. It does leave us a bit weak in that department when you look at maybe, obviously Jorginho went as well. So you do maybe think, you look at Ruben Loftus-Cheek or Dennis Zakaria as well, those kind of options there, and also going forward Conor Gallagher. So it does leave us a bit weak for those final 3 games of the season, with City United coming up very soon as well. So my only concern is, like I said, the same thing about Lewis Hall. I want these players to actually play, and we got to see Lewis Hall playing on Saturday against Nottingham Forest, but they have to be playing. If we're going to keep them in the squad and we want them to be around, Cobham, and we want them to be training with the Chelsea squad, then they have to be playing. They have to be on the bench. They have to be coming on to change the game if they can, if possible, or even start them. There has to be something worthwhile keeping him at the club rather than letting him go to represent England. So I think it kind of does make sense that we keep CARNEY Chukwuemeka due to the injuries, but at the same time as well, let's not just keep him there for the sake of keeping him there. If he's got an opportunity to go and represent his country, he should be going to do that. But if we're actually going to play him against City, against United, then I'm not against that at all. And I'm sure Chukwuemeka, who will eventually link up with the rest of the England squad, probably understands that as well. But it does seem a bit strange that we're allowing CARNEY Chukwuemeka to do that, but not Lewis Hall. Maybe again because we literally don't have anyone that can play left back, but there are options. I mean, we've got nothing really to play for this season, bar maybe bragging rights if we can beat United, if we can beat Manchester City. But you look at the way that the games are unfolding now, we're not even able to beat Nottingham Forest. So it kind of does make me, doesn't sit well with me, the fact that we're not allowing certain players to go. Lewis Hall was told completely at all that he can't leave, but CARNEY Chukwuemeka can. It's a bit of a double standards in my opinion. But more news that broke. Maurizio Pochettino, this was broken by Fabrizio Romano earlier on this week. Maurizio Pochettino is expected. So it says here from Fabrizio Romano, Maurizio Pochettino will be in London this week to sign a contract as new Chelsea coach. Expected to be valid until June 2026. Poch will start discussing transfer plans with the club. New striker and new midfielder will join Chelsea for sure. Great news. Now, of course, this has been the worst kept secret, I think, for the last couple of weeks. Maurizio Pochettino coming to Chelsea. Someone that was never at the top of my list, if I'm honest. There was a lot of talk about Luis Enrique that I was heavily backing, and Julian Nagelsmann as well. But Maurizio Pochettino does come with that experience of playing at the top level, something that Graham Potter didn't have, playing in massive European competitions, the Champions League, getting Spurs to the final. He's done that at that level, and he's obviously gone on to win things in PSG in France as well. And we have to remember, I think I said it a couple of weeks ago, what he did to that Southampton team, how he changed the mentality of the Spurs players as well, and how fit he got them. You look at where they were in terms of fitness levels. I think they were like 17th out of the league when he joined. He got them into the top 3 of the best in terms of fitness in the Premier League. So there's a lot that I think, from what I'm hearing, obviously the PR machine is working overdrive for Maurizio at the moment. There's a lot of good things I'm hearing about the fact that, he wants to come in and install a sort of family environment around Cobham, around the players. He doesn't want to just see it as a place of work for these players. He wants them to feel like it's a second home for them and bring that unity back. One of the things that, we kind of lost, I think, when Roman was the owner, there was a lot of unity, a lot of togetherness. And I think over the last couple of months, we've seen a lot less of that. Owners coming in, changing manager from Tuchel to Potter back to Lampard. So it's been a lot of change for these players and a lot of uncertainties, I think, over the last 12 to 18 months at the club. So Pochettino coming in, I think there's a lot of things that we have to focus on. First of all, that he has to be given the time. I think he's a lot more suited to the job than Graham Potter in terms of that vision, bringing in some of the youngsters, bringing in, some of the Levi Colwells that we hopefully retain at the club. As I just mentioned, Lewis Hall, Carney Chukwuemeka, I know he's a massive favourite of Mason Mount, Reece James, Conor Gallagher. He wants to bring and keep some of that sort of English players, the English homegrown based players at the club and push them to the next level. And I think, Mason Mount will be crazy for me, in my opinion. Someone who, of the calibre of Mauricio Pochettino, being a big fan of you, probably wants to build a team around you as well, incorporate you as much as he can into the squad. I think it'd be crazy to go to Liverpool or to go to Man City or whoever, when you've got a manager that loves you, the club that loves you, you love the club. I know there's been a lot of talk recently about, things are a bit too late down the road. I think the Chelsea Dodgers have tweeted on that quite recently that, things have basically stalled to the point where, even if Mauricio Pochettino comes in and rolls out the red carpet for Mason Mount, things have gone beyond the stage of Mason Mount wanting to even take a year extension onto his current contract. So if that is the case, then so be it. But I do think at the same time as well, one of the first key things that Mauricio Pochettino will have to do is to get some of these players, get some of these contracts. We just mentioned N'Golo Kante, Mason Mount, another one. He has to get all of those things resolved as soon as possible, to understand also as well how he's going to trim the squad down, who needs to go, who needs to stay at the club, what does he need in terms of fresh recruitments. Does he need the striker? 100% he does. The midfielder, as I just mentioned, and clearly a goalkeeper with Edouard Mendy looking to exit the club after contract talks break down as well. So there's a lot for Pochettino to have to come in and do in a short space of time. A lot of people want this announcement from Chelsea for Pochettino to be announced, but I'll be honest, I don't think it doesn't really, for me personally, it doesn't really matter that it's not being announced. I think clearly once he signs a deal, which it looks like he's already done or he's due to do, there's going to be a lot of work behind the scenes that we as fans probably aren't even privy to that are going to be happening. There's a lot of talk about Frank Lampard sitting down with Mauricio and his coaching staff as well, understanding what's happening at the club, what needs to happen, and having that handover, the thing that we didn't get with Tuchel and Potter, which was key. We needed to have that transition and understand it, understanding from both managers as to what's happening. You don't get that in football, that's understandable. But when you've got an interim in like Frank Lampard or, someone that knows the club as well and potentially knows what's needed after being here for a short period of time, I think that will benefit Pochettino 100%. He's probably been doing his own homework anyway and understanding who needs to come in to fulfill a role. I'm still going to scream at Ivan Toney for me, but not for 100 million as he's been dubbed from Brentford. But I think, we've got to look at it realistically about trimming the squad down. You've got to think about Thiago Silva, who, by time the end of next season is going to be almost reaching 41. I think this season now for me isn't about, Thiago Silva playing week in, week out. This should be a moment now for Pochettino to come in, understand that Wesley Fofana, Badia Shiel, if we keep Trevor Chalobah, those players, Levi Colwell coming into this team, they're the future for Chelsea in a defensive capacity. Maybe you keep Koulibaly as the most experienced, or should be the most experienced out of those quite, the younger defenders that we're going to have at the squad. Malagusto coming in as well. We've got Reece James in that right back capacity. And then again, you look at Lewis Hall, you look at Chilwell. Do we even retain Cucurella as well? So a lot has been done already, I think, for Pochettino to come in and do a really good job with this club and with the squad that he's going to have. We've addressed, obviously, Enzo. One of the things that Theo mentioned on one of the podcast episodes was the Argentinian link-up between Pochettino and Enzo Fernandez. That's going to be crucial, I think, for the midfield going forward. And we do need to have someone else in there. We're talking about the McAllisters, the Caicedos, those sort of players. Even Declan Rice is another one that's still being banded around as a player that potentially, especially if we can keep Mason Mount, another player that we can potentially utilise in our midfield. And we still need a striker 100%. But there's going to be a lot of speculation, I think, over the summer period about who we're going to be bringing in, very much like the last one. The only difference, I think, with last summer's transfer window is we know the manager's going to be here hopefully for a longer period than Tuchel was during his time of dealing with transfers with Bowley. So I think we've got to look at it like yes, it didn't work with Thomas Tuchel. No, those signings, things are in place now. Obviously, we've got, you know, the hierarchy, the structure of the board at the top, more concrete than it was in the last summer window. Even in the January window, you know, I think there was still a lot of hesitation from the owners to trust Potter all the way. I think they're in a better position now with Pochettino, and it's clear that he's, you know, wanted to make sure the assurances that he wants in place in terms of maybe negotiations or what players come in, or, you know, having a bit more control over the squad. He's had those assurances put in place first before he even agrees the deal, and I think that's something that Todd Bowley and you know, Clear Lake will have to understand going forward. They'll have to understand that this is the manager that wants to do things his way, and it has to work in a particular way, otherwise it won't work. So I do think there's a lot that this club has done, maybe to set up someone like Pochettino, who likes to work with young players. You look at Madueke, Mudryk, there's so many players that we've brought in over the last 12 to 18 months that will look like a player profile that would suit and benefit the way that Pochettino will potentially want to line up with us as well. So another key thing before we wrap up, Sadio Mane, another name that I got to see banded around on our social accounts earlier on today. I'm going to just put this one simply. No, he doesn't. I don't think we need a 31, or he might even be older, but 31-year-old Sadio Mane. Yes, he's a previous Golden Boot winner at Liverpool. He had probably his best times at Liverpool. Clearly hasn't worked out with him at Bayern Munich, but I think it doesn't fit the profile. Let's be honest, it doesn't fit the profile as to what Todd Bowley is trying to, you know, bring in this young squad and bring them through. There's still a massive question mark about Lukaku. And I know that Mane isn't an out-and-out number 9. He's not someone that you would expect to see playing as a lone striker. We've got covering those roles left and right. I think you look at Raheem Sterling, you know, you look at Madueke, you look at Mudryk as well. You know, Christian Pulisic potentially still going to go. There's obviously a lot of talk. I think David Ornstein confirmed yesterday that Hakim Ziyech and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang are both due to leave in the summer. So it does free up. And I think, as I said, you know, we need to assess what players are staying, what players are going, before we even think about bringing players in. I think that's the first thing for me. Pochettino has to come in and understand who he wants to retain, who he sees as surplus. And then you can start wheeling and dealing and bringing in certain players. And there's still obviously a lot of talk about Nkunku still coming in as well. So I think trying to fit Mane into a team that possibly wouldn't suit him for the money as well. I mean, he's going to be on very good wages. I'm assuming at Bayern Munich, and will want to try and keep those wages as to what they are at the moment. So I think to bring him in for the money, I think there's alternative options we could probably go in. And as I said, we've got a lot of youth to try and bring through this squad in the next couple of months or so as well. But let me know what you think. Obviously, it's a lot of to and froing at the moment with Chelsea. We seem to be trying to sustain and build a bit of momentum on the pitch. Clearly, that didn't work against Nottingham Forest after a 2-2 draw. But we've got a massive game coming up this Sunday. We still have a massive say in the league. You know, if Arsenal lose to Forest, it almost confirms that City are going to be league leaders, Premier League winners. But at the end of the day, you know, our season has been up and down. But let me know what you think about Pochettino coming in as manager. Let me know what you think about, should Wesley Fofana, should Badia Shaw be the number one centre-back partnership for next season as well? Do we need to keep Thiago Silva back and maybe just bring him in for the cup games? Let me know what you think about that as well. And obviously N'Golo Kante, another player that potentially might be leaving in the summer, still hasn't signed his contract. Let me know what you think about all of that in the comments, please, below. Do not forget to subscribe. As I said, I'm trying to get to 400 subscribers by the end of this season. So any thumbs up, subs, passing around, sharing to your friends is really appreciated. We'll be back with another episode. Episode 94 should be out this Friday. So we'll make sure that we give you the preview for Man City as well. So thank you very much for watching. Until next time, stay safe, and we'll be back very soon.